Hi friends!
Hey guys!
I'm Avalon.
I'm Sabrina.
And I'm Jasmine.
And welcome to our channel, where we are reading Chapter 10 of The School of Good and Evil.
And a recap of last chapter, the 100% show. What?
I totally thought of something that we talked about yesterday about schedule. So 1 a week or 2 a week.
Oh, gotcha. So we're gonna try and record as many as we can, but I fly out to visit my family on the other side of the coast in like a day and a half. So we're not sure if we're gonna be able to get all the chapters we needed done to try and do the 2 chapters a week that you guys were hoping for.
She's going to be gone for a month.
Yeah.
We should preface with that.
So we have to attempt to get a lot of chapters read tonight with
It's
like
gonna
a
be
2-hour window. So we'll
it's
see
going to
how
be
this
like
works.
an all-nighter.
Yeah. I got coffee.
I got work in the morning.
Too bad, you're the one flying out.
So we're gonna try. We're talking about maybe worst case scenario. I can phone in or something to continue, but we'll do our best. We're sorry. Anyway, recap of last chapter is Hester had some sort of dragon magic that she attacked Sophie with, and Sophie, still determined to be the princess that she is, tried to call animals to help her. Well, it worked. She got animals to come help her, but it was insects and bats and stuff. All the dark kind of gross creatures came to her aid and thoroughly terrified Hester. So that happened. And also Agatha happened upon Tedros launching an arrow into a dummy that represented her at the end of the chapter.
Oh, good old Tedros. Oh, good old
So
Tedros.
he clearly does not like her.
I think they'll end up
They still haven't made any clarification of the gargoyle incident in his parents' shrine, as you would. So let's see what happens.
All right, Chapter 10, Bad Group. Who else is in our group? Agatha asked Sophie, breaking the tension. Sophie didn't answer. In fact, she acted as if Agatha wasn't there at all. The last day of class, Surviving Fairy Tales, was the only one that mixed students from good and evil. After Professor Dovey ordered Everboys to the armory to turn in their personal weapons, the only way to appease Lady Lessos, furious over losing a gargoyle to Tedros' sword, both schools reported to the Blue Forest Gates, where fairies sorted them into forest groups. 8 Evers and Nevers in each. 8 Evers and 8 Nevers in each, as their children found their leaders: an ogre for group 2, a centaur for group 8, a lily nymph for 12. Agatha and Sophie were the first to arrive under the flag stamped with a blood-red 3. Agatha had so much to tell Sophie about smiles and fish and fires, and most of all about the foul son of Arthur, but Sophie wouldn't even look at her. "Can't we just go home?" Agatha begged. "Why don't you go home before you fail or end up a mole rat?" Sophie fumed. "You're in my school." "Then why won't it let us switch?" Sophie spun. Because we need to go home," Agatha glared. Sophie smiled her kindest smile. "Sooner or later, they'll see what's right." "I'd say sooner," a voice sounded. They turned to Tedros, shirt scorched, eyes swollen pink and blue. If you're itching for something to kill, how about yourself this time?" Agatha spat. "Thank you would suffice," Tedros shot back. "I risked my life to kill that gargoyle." "You killed an innocent child," Agatha yelled. "I saved you from a death against all instinct and reason," Tedros roared. Sophie gaped at them. "You two know each other?"
Oh God.
Agatha
Oh no.
Oh no. Agatha swiveled to her. "You think he's your prince? He's just a puffed-up windbag who can't find anything better to do than prance around half-naked and thrust his sword where it doesn't belong."
Oh.
Oh, giggity.
She said it.
Giggity.
I don't blame her.
Yeah, the giggity damn was that an insult.
Yeah.
In more ways than one.
Yes.
She's just mad because she owes me her life, Tedros yawned, scratching his chest. He grinned at Sophie. So you think I'm your prince?
Oh my god.
So, just to clarify here.
He's dim, too.
Sophie blushed delicately the way she had practiced before class. I knew it was a mistake at the welcoming, the prince said, studying her with dancing blue eyes. A girl like you shouldn't be anywhere near evil. He turned to Agatha with a scowl. And a witch like you shouldn't be anywhere near someone like her. Agatha stepped towards him. First of all, this witch happens to be her friend. And second, why don't you go play with yours before I make your eyes match? Tedros laughed so hard he had to grip the gate. A princess friends with a witch? Now there's a fairy tale. Agatha frowned at Sophie, waiting for her to jump in. Sophie swallowed and turned to Tedros. Well, it's funny that you say that because a princess certainly can't be friends with a witch, of course. But doesn't it depend on your type of witch? I mean, what exactly is your definition of a witch? Now Tedros was frowning at her. And so, what I'm trying to say is, Sophie looked between Tedros and Agatha to Tedros. She swept in front of Agatha and took Tedros' hand. My name's Sophie, and I like your bruise. Agatha crossed her arms.
Only Sophie would comment on a bruise.
I like your bruise.
I like it.
It shows you're strong and rugged.
I like your bruise.
Basically.
Hey, it's like in Mulan, you know? He wants someone to love his battle scars.
I guess. My, Tedros said, gazing into Sophie's tantalizing green eyes. How are you surviving in that place? Because I knew you would rescue me, Sophie breathed. Agatha coughed to remind them she was still there. You've got to be kidding me. A girl's voice behind them. They turned to see Beatrix under a bloody 3, along with Dot, Port, Raven, Millicent, and the rest of their forest group. To chart all the dirty looks thrown at the moment, one would end up with something resembling a bowl of spaghetti. Said a voice below. They looked down to find a 4-foot gnome with wrinkly brown skin, a belted green coat, and a pointy orange hat, frowning from a hole in the ground. Bad group, he murmured. Grumbling loudly, Yerba the gnome crawled out of his burrow, pulled the gate open with stubby white staff, and led his students into the blue forest. For a moment, everyone forgot the rancor and marveled at the blue wonderland around them. Every tree, every flower, every blade of grass sparkled with a different hue. Slender beams of sun slipped through cerulean canopies, lighting up turquoise trunks and navy blooms. Deer grazed on azure lilacs. Crows and hummingbirds jabbed into sapphire nettles. Squirrels and rabbits jaunted through cobalt briars to join storks sipping from a aquamarine pond. No animal seemed skittish or the slightest bit bothered by the crisscrossing student tours. Where Sophie and Agatha had always associated forests with danger and darkness, this one beckoned with beauty and life. At least until they saw a flock of bony, stiff birds sleeping on their blue nest. Why let those around students? Sophie said. Sleep during the day, perfectly harmless, Dot whispered back, unless a villain wakes them up.
Hint, hint.
As his students followed, Yerba rattled off the history of the Blue Forest in his clipped horay voice. Horay.
Okay.
Yep.
Hooray.
Yep. Once upon a time, there had been no joint classes for School of Good and School for Evil students. Instead, children had graduated straight from their school's training into the Endless Woods, but before they could ever engage in battle, good and evil inevitably fell prey to hungry boars, scavenging imps, cranky spiders, and the occasional man-eating tulip.
Man-eating tulip.
We have forsaken the obvious, said Yerba. You cannot survive your fairy tale if you cannot survive the woods.
Like my gnome voice?
Who's that?
That's
Your
the gnome!
Your
It's my gnome voice.
Okay.
So the school created the Blue Forest as a training ground. The signature blue foliage arose from the protective enchantments that kept intruders out, while remaining students, it was just an imitation of the treacherous woods. As to how treacherous the real thing was, the students sensed firsthand that Yerba led them past the north gates. Though there was still sunlight left on the autumn evening, the dark, dense woods repelled it like a shield. It was a forest of eternal night, and every inch of green blackened by shadow. As their eyes adjusted to the city darkness, the students could see the puny dirt path leading into the trees, like a withering lifeline on an old man's palm. To both sides of the path, vines strangled trees into armored clumps, so there was barely an undergrowth between them. What was left of the forest floor had been buried beneath mangled thorns, stabbing twigs, and a gauntlet of spiderwebs. But none of this scared the students as much as the in case you didn't notice, from the light difference, we had dinner. It came. It was DoorDash. It was delicious. But anyway, we're going back to the book.
That's on.
It got darker.
Actually, we might need to put that light on if I can't read this.
I got you. Hold on.
Okay. No, I'll try and struggle. Okay. I will continue.
Start singing the Mission Impossible theme song.
Wait, is there? Oh.
Hey! Turn on the closet light.
Woo.
I look like I'm about to be abducted.
Aliens!
That should help though with the book.
That does help with the book. I can actually read it now.
See?
I'm turning old.
I have to wear glasses at night if I'm reading.
I think I'm gonna have to start.
This is so far gone.
I can still read, but this eye is definitely getting
straining.
Yeah.
No
the other one's fine, but yeah, you had to start wearing glasses like
I have perfect vision in one eye. I have 15/20 vision until I wear glasses, and then I have 20/22. Thank you very much.
Same. Something like that.
I don't know what my eyesight is right now because I haven't gone to an optometrist since I was a little kid.
I was so good at guessing the letters and not getting them wrong that I actually went like undiagnosed for like 3 or 4 years.
Yep.
I actually had to tell them. I was like, I'm just letting you know, it's actually blurry, but I'm guessing. They're like, oh, okay.
You're like,
let us know if you guys have eye problems, so we can all relate to each other.
If you wear glasses, tell me I'm not alone.
Yep.
Anyways,
I'm never wearing glasses. I'm gonna get contacts. I'm gonna start poking my eyes
Have
out.
fun. I couldn't poke my eyes. I tried.
Oh,
with swimming so much, I can't.
I did it last summer with swim lessons just fine.
Huh. Oh, something to think about.
Anyway. Anyway, back to the book.
Cobwebs.
Yes, cobwebs. But none of this scared the students as much as the sound that came from the darkness beyond the path. Moans and growls echoed from the forest bowels, while low rasps and snarls added ghoulish harmony. Then the students began to see what was making the sounds. Pairs of eyes watched them through the onyx depth. Devilish, red and yellow, flickering, vanishing, and reappearing closer than before. The terrible noises grew louder, and the fiendish eyes multiplied. The undergrowth crackled with life, and just when the students saw skulking outlines rise from the mist,
This way.
Yerba called back. The students scampered from the gates and followed the gnome through the blue clearing without looking back. Surviving fairy tales was just like any other class. Yerba explained from a turquoise tree stump that students ranked from 1 to 16 for each challenge. Only now there was something more at stake. Twice a year, each of the 15 groups would send its...
Don't mind me.
Its ever and never...
It's best ever and never.
Oh, sorry. Best ever and never to complete in the school's trial by tale. Yerba didn't say any more about the mysterious competition, except that the winners received 5 extra first-place ranks. The students in this group glanced at each other, thinking the same thing. Whoever won the trial by tale would surely be class captain. Now there were 5 rules that separate good from evil. Oh,
Now there are 5 rules that separate good from evil,
the gnome said, and wrote them in the air with the smoking staff. Number 1, the evil attack, the good defend. Number 2, the evil punish, the good forgive. Number 3, the evil hurt, the good help. Number 4, the evil take, the good give. And number 5, the evil hate, the good love.
As long as you obey these rules for your side, and you have the best possible chance of surviving your fairy tale,
Yerba said to the group gathered in the navy grass.
These rules should come with ease, of course. You have been chosen for your schools precisely because you show them at the highest level.
Sophie wanted to scream. Help, give, love, that was her life, that was her soul.
But first you must learn to recognize good and evil, said Yerba.
In the woods,
appearances are often deceiving. Snow White nearly perished because she thought an old woman kind. Red Riding Hood herself found herself in a wolf's stomach because she couldn't tell the difference between family and fiend. Even Beauty struggled to distinguish between the hideous beast and the noble prince. All unnecessary suffering, for no matter how good and evil are disguised, they will always be told apart. You must look closely, and you must remember the rules.
For the first challenge, Yerba announced each student had to distinguish a disguised ever and never by observing their behavior. Whoever correctly identified the good student and the evil student in the fastest time would receive the first rank.
I've never done any of these evil rules, Sophie moaned, standing beside Tedros. If only they knew all my good deeds.
Beatrix turned. Nevers shouldn't talk to Evers.
Evers shouldn't call it Evers Nevers,
Sophie snapped. Beatrix looked confused, while Tedros bit back a smile. You have to prove they switched you into a witch. You have to prove they switched you in the witch, he whispered to Sophie once Beatrix's turned back. Win the challenge, and I'll go to Professor Dovey myself. If the gargoyle doesn't convince her, this will.
You would do that? For me?
Sophie said, eyes wide. Tedros touched her black tunic. Can't flirt with you in this, can I?
What?
Sophie would have burned her robes right there if she could. Hort volunteered to go first. As soon as he tied the ragged blindfold over his eyes, Yerba stabbed the staff at Maleficent and Raven, who magically shriveled in their pink and black clothes, smaller and smaller until they slithered out of them, identical cobras. Hort whipped off the blindfold.
Well,
Yerba said. They look bloody the same to me, Hort said.
Test them, Yerba scowled. Use the rules.
I don't even remember the rules, Hort said.
Said half the guys in every class ever back in high school.
Yeah.
Pretty
What
much.
did the teacher say?
I don't remember.
Wasn't paying attention.
Next, the gnome grouched. For Dot's turn, he changed Beatrix and Hort into unicorns. But then one unicorn started copying the other and vice versa until they both pranced about like mimicking mimes. Dot scratched her head.
Rule 1. Eat the evil attack, the good defend, barked Yerba. Which one started it, Dot? Oh, can we start again? Not just bad, Yerba gulped. Worst.
He squinted at the scroll of names.
Who would like to be disguised for Tedros?
All the Evergirls raised their hands.
You haven't gone yet, Yerba said, pointing at Sophie. You either, he said and pointed to Agatha.
My grandmother could get this one right, mumbled Tedros, tightening the blindfold. Agatha trampled in front of the class, stood next to Sophie, who was blushing like a bride.
Aggie, he doesn't care what school I'm in or the color of my robes, Sophie gushed. He sees who I am.
You don't even know him, Sophie flushed.
You're not happy for me? He knows nothing about you, Agatha shot back. All he sees is your looks.
For the first time in my life, I feel like someone understands me, Sophie sighed. Hort squeezed Agatha's throat. Hurt squeezed Agatha's throat. Sorry, not Hort. Hurt squeezed Agatha's throat.
But what about, you said...
Sophie met her eyes.
You've been such a good friend, Aggie, but we'll be in different schools, won't we?
Agatha turned away.
Ready, Tedros, go!
Yerba jabbed his staff and both the girls exploded from their clothes into slimy, stinky hobgoblins. Tedros took off the blindfold and jumped back, hand to nose. Sophie clasped the green claws and batted her wormy eyelashes at him. With Sophie's words throbbing in her head, Agatha slumped sullenly and gave up. It seems too obvious, Tedros said, eyeing the flirting hobgoblin. Sophie stopped batting her eyelashes, confused. And that witch is craftier than you can imagine, Tedros said, glancing between the two goblins. Agatha rolled her eyes. This boy had a brain like a peanut.
Feel with the heart, not the mind,
Yerba shouted at the prince. Grimacing, Tedros closed his eyes. For a moment, the prince hesitated, but then, surely powerfully, he felt himself pull towards one of the hobgoblins. Sophie gasped. It wasn't her. Tedros reached out and touched Agatha's wet, warty cheek. This one's Sophie. He opened his eyes. This one's a princess. Agatha gasped at Sophie, dumbstruck. Wait, I'm right, Tedros said. Right? For a moment, everything went quiet. Sophie tackled Agatha. You ruin everything! To everyone else, this sounded like gobble ooba hooah, but Agatha understood just fine. You see how stupid he is? He can't even tell us apart, Agatha yelled. You tricked him, Sophie shrieked, just like you tricked the bird and the wave and the... Tedros punched her in the eye. Leave Sophie alone, he shouted. Sophie gasped at him. Her prince had just punched her. Her prince had just confused her with Agatha. How could she prove who she was? Use the rules, Yuba bellowed atop a log. Suddenly understanding, Sophie lurched up on her spotted humped body so her spotted humped body towered over Tedros, and she caressed his chest with ghastly green hand. My dear Tedros, I forgive you for not knowing any better, and I won't defend myself even though you attacked me. I only want to help you, my prince, and give us a story that will take us hand in hand to love, happiness, and ever laughter. But all Tedros heard was a torrent of goblin growls, so he stomped on Sophie's foot and ran towards Agatha's goblin, arms outstretched. I can't believe you were ever friends with... Agatha kneed him in the groin. Now I'm confused, Tedros wheezed and collapsed. Moaning in pain, he craned up to see Sophie shove Agatha into a blueberry bush. Agatha smacked Sophie with a screeching squirrel.
This is a whole cat fight.
Yep. And the two
Over
goblins...
God. Oh, yep. Over a boy. Over a boy.
And the two goblins go back and forth, bashing each other over like over sugared children.
Yeah. Cat fight.
I'm sorry, but if my over-sugared children started bashing each other, I would bash them together.
Exactly.
And then lock them in their rooms.
Oh.
Go calm your ass down.
Yes.
I'll never go home with you, screamed Sophie. Oh, marry me, Tedros, hissed Agatha. At least I will get married. The fight escalated to a ludicrous climax, with Sophie beating Agatha with a blue squash, Agatha sitting on Sophie's head, and the class gleefully making bets at who was who. Go rotting Galvadon alone, Sophie screamed. Better you than with a phony, Agatha shouted. Get out of my life! You came into mine! Hobbling, Tedros leapt between them. Enough! It was the wrong moment. Both goblins turned on the prince with slime-drenching, ear-splitting roars and kicked him so hard he sailed over groups 2, 6, and 10 and landed in a heap of boar dung.
He deserved that.
Yes.
Yeah, he sure did.
The girls' green hides shrank, their scales softened to skin, their bodies melted into human clothes. Slowly, Sophie and Agatha turned to find the entire group goggling at them. Happy, good ending, said Hort.
Hold your verdict, Yerba said. For when good acts evil and evil acts incompetent, the rules are broken right and left until I can't figure out what's what. Well, there's only one ending indeed. The two pairs of iron shoes magically grew on the girl's feet. Yuck, these are hideous, Sophie frowned. Then the shoes grew blazing hot. Fire! Fire in my feet! Yelled Agatha, hopping up and down. Make it stop! Sophie cried, dancing in pain. In the distance, the wolves howled the end of class. Class dismissed, Yerba said and waddled off. What about us? Screamed Agatha, yanking at her burning soles. Unfortunately, fairy tale punishments have a mind of their own, the Gnome called back. They'll end when lesson has been learned. The class followed him back towards the school gates, leaving Sophie and Agatha to dance in cursed shoes. Tedros limped past the punished girls, covered in slime and dung. He gave them equally disgusted scowls. Now I can see why you two are friends. As the prince trudged into the blue thicket, the girls glimpsed Bellatrix sidle up to him. I know they were both evil, she said, as they vanished between the oaks. This is your fault, Sophie wheezed to Agatha, dancing in agony. Please make it stop, Agatha sputtered. But the shoes showed no mercy. Minute by minute, they grew hotter and hotter until the two girls couldn't even scream. Even the animals couldn't watch such suffering and stayed away. Afternoon turned to evening and then to night, and still they danced like madwomen, whirling and sweating in pain and despair. Burn rippled through their bones, fire became their blood, and soon they were wishing that the suffering would end at any cost. Death knew when he was called, but just as the two girls surrendered to the cruel hands, sabers of sunlight shattered the darkness, speared their feet, and the shoes went cold. The girls collapsed in tormented heaps. Ready to go home? Agatha panted. Sophie looked up, ghost white. I thought you'd never ask.
What?
And that ends
Dang.
That chapter.
Wow. Girl fight.
Cat
fight.
Big cat fight right there. Goodness. Well,
So,
thoughts.
tell
opinions?
us, you guys, what you think about that cat fight. That got pretty intense.
Yep.
Those burning shoe punishments were definitely not expected.
And I think
No.
that's why Sophie's ready to go home. She's like, okay, I'm done.
Yeah.
Tedros
agree.
doesn't want me.
Over it.
I'm in the wrong school. I'm having this torturous punishment. I'm done.
Yeah.
I'm done.
I agree with that. For sure. Well, until then, we'll see you guys next time. Bye.